The Atlanta Falcons are quietly having one of the most impressive offseasons in the entire NFL, building an absolutely dominant defense in the process. Now, the Falcons are coming off a season where they went 7-10 and actually haven't finished with a positive record since 2017. Now, with that being said, I do believe that this could be the year the Falcons finally turn things around and pull off an incredible season in 2023. Now, in this video, I'll be breaking down the most impactful acquisitions by the Falcons this offseason, but more importantly, what they need to do next in this draft to shock the world next season. However, before we jump into today's video, make sure you guys smash that like button. It helps out the channel so much you don't even understand. So let's see if we can get this video up to 400 likes. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will be covering the Falcons and the rest of the NFL all year long, so join the family. And lastly, comment down below, who do you guys believe, or who do you guys want, I should say, the Falcons to draft with their very first draft pick in this upcoming draft? Let me know who you guys, or what your opinion is on that. But without any further ado, let's jump right into today's video. Now, the Falcons have done an amazing job in free agency, addressing their biggest needs and actually filling out some of the roster spots with, starters going forward. And in some other spots, they filled in some spots with a bunch of rotational pieces as well over the whole entire roster. I mean, when you look up and down this roster, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 potential starters for next season, which is absolutely incredible. Now, before we deep dive into all these signings, let's real quickly take a look back at 2022 and see where the Falcons needed to improve most coming into this offseason. Now, offensively, the Falcons were very middle of the pack, and obviously changes need to be made. To be fair, though, they didn't really have a cemented quarterback one throughout the entirety of the season. So I do believe with another season with Desmond Ridder under the belt, or under the offense leading this team, I do think they can improve a lot going forward. I just think he needs some more time as the leader in the main quarterback on this team. So I do think that'll help. But let's take a look at some of their rankings from last year. The Falcons ranked number 15 in points per game, number 24 in yards per game, number 14 in red zone scoring, number 18 in touchdowns per game. Now, like I said before, they didn't really stand out in any of these major offensive categories last season, but I do believe when Desmond Ridder gets a full offseason under his belt, this offense will improve just like that. But let's take a deeper look to see where the Falcons actually struggled the most. Atlanta had one of the most successful rushing attacks in all of football last season due to the fact that both their quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder, were pretty decent on the run, or in the run game. Now, they ranked number 6 in rush yards per carry, number 2 in rush yards per game, and number 9 in rushing touchdowns per game. Compared to their passing attack, which was just very underwhelming. Ranking number 24 in completion percentage, number 16 in pass yards per play, number 31 in pass attempts per game, number 13 in interception percentage, and number 26 in sack percentage. Okay, so let's get into some of the moves that they've made to start this offseason. Firstly, bringing in a tight end 2 in Jonnu Smith. Although Jonnu is coming off a bad couple of seasons with the New England Patriots, he is still a very reliable pass catcher and will be an immediate impact player for this Falcons team going forward. What this does is give them the versatility to even have Kyle Pitts stretch out and play a little bit of wide receiver while still having a solid tight end at the position. Listen, I know Jonnu's been struggling over the past couple years, but he can be an immediate down-the-field threat and overall playmaker when he has the ball in his hands. I love Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith together. Now, like I said, you can use Kyle Pitts at wide receiver, or they can do 2 tight end sets, which I think could be very, very productive. Just imagine having 2 speedy tight ends. It could be very dangerous going forward. I do expect them to run a ton of 2 tight end sets going forward. Now, over Jonnu's career, he's put up 169 catches, over 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, while averaging about 10.9 yards per catch. From there, the wide receiver room needed a huge upgrade, and they needed to get Desmond Ridder some weapons for next season. Now, with that being said, they brought in 2 wide receivers, and these names I'm about to tell you, they aren't the flashiest names in the world, but they are solid. Now, firstly, bringing in Matt Collins, who is a big wide receiver, formerly of the Raiders, who can go up and catch a ton of one-on-one balls. And I think that Falcons fans will actually fall in love with his game pretty quickly once he steps his foot onto training camp and minicamp and preseason. I think the Falcons fans are absolutely going to love his ability to just come in and make big-time plays, big-time catches on 3rd and 4th down. They also brought in former Bucs wide receiver Scotty Miller, who I also think can make a little bit of an impact on this team, but I do think that with these two guys coming in, they definitely have more room to grow. They definitely have more time, and they need to go out and bring in some more wide receivers here for Desmond Ridder. I do like Scotty Miller, don't get me wrong, but I only think that his potential is capped. But I might be wrong. He's a slot receiver. He can come in here, maybe play a big role, but we'll see what they end up doing. I mean, when I just sit here and look at the wide receiver core, you got Drake London, who I love. I think he's amazing. Matt Collins, Scotty Miller. Those seem to be your starting 3. Then you got some guys who can maybe jump up and become a starter. And Frank Darby, the former 6th-round pick. You got Cordero Hodge, Jared Bernhardt, Rashawn Henry. I mean, there's not a lot of guys here that I really trust. Especially when you have a young quarterback trying to develop, you need to go out and add more. And like I said earlier, maybe Kyle Pitts steps up and becomes, a half and half wide receiver, half tight end. You never know. So see, I definitely think they need to add more there. I like Pitts, I like London, I like Collins, but there definitely needs to be more potential. Overall, I like the moves that the Falcons have made, but there's still a ton of work to do offensively. And we'll talk about who they're quietly targeting in this draft. However, on the other side of the ball, the Falcons have improved drastically. Now, before we jump into the defense, make sure you guys smash that like button real quickly if you're enjoying the video so far. Subscribe if you're new, join the family. I will be covering the rest of the NFL offseason, which includes the rest of free agency, the draft, trades, whatever goes down, I got you guys covered. So make sure you have your post notifications turned on, and you'll be notified every time something happens in the NFL. Okay, so let's talk about where the Falcons defense ranked up compared to the rest of the NFL in 2022. Now, the Falcons ranked number 21 in points allowed, number 26 in yards allowed, number 31 in 3rd down conversion percentage allowed, number 13 in red zone scoring, and number 16 in touchdowns allowed per game. Now, some of these stats are horrible, but again, definitely needed to be improved on going forward. But let's take a deeper look at where they struggled the most. Now, the Falcons were actually pretty terrible in both stopping the run and stopping the passing attack, ranking number 19 in rush yards allowed per attempt, number 23 in rush yards allowed per game, number 17 in rush touchdowns allowed. Compare their passing defense, which ranked number 26 in pass completion percentage allowed, number 29 in yards per pass allowed, number 25 in pass yards allowed per game, number 25 in interception percentage, and number 32 in sack percentage. So overall, it was just really bad for the Falcons. But the good news is the Falcons absolutely killed, smashed, whatever the word you want to use is, they killed this offseason in terms of adding playmakers all over this defense. Most recently, yesterday, the Falcons traded for former Lions first-round pick Jeff Okudah. Not only was he a first-round pick, but he was one of the top players selected in the entire draft, being selected at number 3 overall. The Falcons only gave up a 5th-round pick in return, and honestly, this could be game-changing for this defense going into next season. Now, listen, cornerback was one of their glaring holes remaining after free agency, and this is a big-time pickup to fill a little bit of that role. Now, I don't want to give you guys false information. Jeff Okudah is an okay player. He hasn't lived up to his expectations, but I do believe he still has the ability to reach his true potential, which is pretty much an all-pro cornerback. Now, the change of scenery will definitely help, but I overall think that this is a low-risk, high-reward situation here for Atlanta and Jeff Okudah. I think Jeff Okudah needs to, kind of turn up, man. A former 3 overall pick, you got to step up and be that type of player. And if he does become a very good type of player here for Atlanta, watch out, because this defense could get even more scarier. Over Jeff's 3-year career, he's accounted for 124 tackles, 103 solo, 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions, and 10 pass deflections. Then most notably, they signed former safety for the Bengals, Jesse Bates. He was also on his way to Atlanta, and Bates has been known as one of the best safeties in the entire game over the last few seasons, and he will bring that style of play over here to the Falcons, who desperately needed a defensive culture change. Over his 5-year career, he's tallied up 478 tackles, 326 solo, 3 forced fumbles, and 14 interceptions, as well as 43 pass deflections as well. Not only are the Falcons adding a big-time playmaker, but someone who will come in here and completely change his secondary, pairing up with A.J. Terrell and obviously Jeff Okudah now. From there, the Falcons added another dominant defensive lineman in former Raven Calais Campbell, and when this news broke, we knew instantly that this is going to be an X-Factor type of signing here for Atlanta. Yes, Calais is getting up there in age, but the Falcons have a shot to win this division this season, and Calais will help them so much in the trenches. Over his long career, Calais has, tallied up 809 tackles, 584 solo, 99 sacks, 16 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions as well. Calais is going to drastically improve this defensive line, and we can already see a solid team shaping out over the first couple of signings to start free agency, but they didn't stop there. The Falcons also added 2 very impactful defenders in the front 7, and guys like David Onyemata and Eddie Goldman. 2 guys who add very much needed depth and veteran leadership alongside Grady Jarrett and Calais Campbell. Dude, I'm loving the offseason they have started to do here. I mean, you got David Onyemata, you got Calais Campbell, Grady Jarrett, you got Lorenzo Carter, Eddie Goldman, and that's not even mentioning what they could be adding in this draft. However, they weren't done just yet. They also added former Saints linebacker or edge rusher Caden Ellis, who's coming off a career year with New Orleans, putting up 78 tackles, 43 solo, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 9 stuffs as well. Listen, overall, this defense is absolutely stacked. And like I said many times this offseason, it's nowhere near over. And the Falcons have a lot of work to do to improve this team going forward. Now, let's talk about who the Falcons have been quietly working out with and who they could potentially be adding in this draft in just a couple of weeks. Now, as we stand a couple of weeks away from the draft, there's some glaring needs for the Falcons going forward, and some of those positions include, edge rusher, guard, wide receiver, and maybe some corner depth as well. Those are the biggest needs, but they also have some depth needs as well in terms of maybe running back as well as safety. But with that being said, I think the smartest thing the Falcons can do is going out here and bringing in a round 1 to 2 wide receiver as well as an edge rusher as well. And then from there, just nail the guard position, nail the offensive line, guard, safety, maybe some more corners. And I think this could be a very good draft, but I do think they have some big holes, including wide receiver, and they need to get some young talent off the edge. With, Calais Campbell and some of these guys that they brought in are getting up there in age, so they would be, they would benefit from bringing in some young guys. Now, let's take a look at some of the names the Falcons could potentially be looking at for starters. They definitely have a lot, or have done a lot, to improve this pass rush, but bringing in some young guys will definitely help. Just because, like I said, the guys they brought in, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Eddie Goldman, these guys aren't the youngest guys in the world, and they definitely would benefit from having a young guy come in and learn from these guys right away. Now, if Atlanta wants to go early edge rusher in this draft, they can choose between a couple of different solid options, including 2 guys like Lucas Van Ness, D lineman from Iowa, or Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Now, my favorite is Tyree Wilson. He's a 6'6", 275-pound freak athlete who will thrive in the system. He was one of the best run stoppers in the Big 12, and he also brought in 7 sacks as well. With Calais Campbell and Grady Jarrett being massive contributors, it should allow Myles Murphy to come off the edge with a ton of one-on-one scenarios, which should only help him. Now, from there, if they do go edge rusher in the first round, they pretty much need to, or I would love them to go wide receiver, guard, running back depth, safety depth, and listen, they need to bring in a couple of wide receivers. I would not be surprised if they went out here and drafted, 1 to 2 wide receivers in the first 4 or 5 rounds, and then brought in a couple of, undrafted free agent wide receivers as well. Because the wide receiver position right now, I don't love it. It's okay, but they definitely need to work on it to help out Desmond Ridder develop. There's also a chance that they go out and try to draft a quarterback. I don't think that's going to happen. I like Desmond Ridder. I think he's got a ton of potential, but I guess we'll see what they do here in the next couple of weeks. Let me know what you guys think they should do in this draft. Comment down below. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that like button. Join the family, and I will be seeing you guys in the next video. But overall, like I said many times, I like what the Falcons are doing. When you look at this offense, I like it. They need wide receiver depth. The O-line maybe needs some guard help. Overall, I like everything else they got going on, man. I like Desmond Ridder. I like the running backs they have. They need some depth behind Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, Caleb Huntley, Avery Williams. They need some depth behind those guys, but you got Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, Lorenzo Carter, Troy Anderson, Mikael Walker, Caden Ellis, Tate Davis, A.J. Terrell, Richie Grant, Jesse Bates, Casey Hayward, Jeff Okuda. I mean, this team is looking very good on paper. They need to develop. They need to improve in this draft, and this team could be very, very scary heading into 2023. Let me know how you guys feel about it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.